4 down, 8 to go, and the A1 Grand Prix Series has so far lived up to expectations. It's destination Malaysia for A1 Grand Prix and for race event 5. France are again the team to beat as Alexander Premat looks towards repeating the feat of his teammate Nicolas Lapierre and not for the first time recording another double victory for the French. Will they continue to impress or can another nation eclipse them this weekend? It's round 5 of the World Cup of Motorsport this weekend. The Sepang International Circuit welcomes A1 Grand Prix, and today it's qualifying. Hi there, we're 5 race meetings into the A1 Grand Prix calendar and another busy weekend of motorsport beckons. This time Malaysia the destination for A1GP. This could be a money-spinning couple of days for Team France. A 4th place finish in the feature race tomorrow will be enough to see them become the first nation to pass the $1 million prize money mark in the series. Can anyone stop their dominance here in Sepang? We're close to finding out. Qualifying due to get underway shortly. Let's go trackside and join our commentary team of John Watson and Ben Edwards for more.
We're just seconds away from the start of the first qualifying segment here at Sepang International Raceway. Stephen Simpson looking at the weather as everybody concentrates on what's happening. The qualifying session begins, and it is the Lebanese car that will start the session off. Khalil Bashir heads out onto circuit in conditions that could change as we go through the first 15 minutes, let alone the entire qualifying period. So maybe some teams will decide to get out there fairly early, and they may decide to put on their new tyres straight away.
Well, I certainly think that would be the smart thing to do, because it is so difficult to predict when weather will fall, whether it will be rain or just simply the track temperature drop. But there's a benchmark time that everybody's got to look to as being the basis of your qualifying runs. That's a 1 minute 55.193. That was a time attained this morning by Team Netherlands, Jos Verstappen, and that was on a brand new set of Cooper tyres.
Now, Team Mexico, we're watching here. This is Luis Diaz at the wheel. The 27-year-old has taken over for this meeting from Salvador Duran and also from David Martinez. That's the 3rd driver in Team Mexico so far, mixing and matching a little bit. Out comes Matthias Lauda. He's the only driver for Team Austria throughout the series. But Luis Diaz in the Mexican car. He's come over from the United States, where he's raced Indy Lights and Toyota Atlantic in the past. In the last year or two, he's been doing the Grand Am series with Chip Ganassi's racing team, and he actually finished runner-up in that championship. But it's a very different kind of car, the A1 Grand Prix machine. This is Stephen Simpson preparing to come out as Ananda Mikula of Indonesia, also set 4th for his qualifying run in this 15-minute segment.
There's also a certain amount of reluctance for those people maybe that would consider themselves the front runners to come out early in the session. They want to see how the track has changed in the 2 hours since the last of those official practice sessions, so they will sit back. But again, it's this thing of gambling. How long can they sit? Is this weather going to pass us by and not rain, or will it fall? And if you get caught by weather, then you can kiss goodbye any chance of getting on the front row of the grid.
France getting to get Alex Premat out on circuit fairly soon, perhaps, although they're applying a bit of air to the back of his neck just to keep him cool, I should think, before he sets forth. And the first few cars to go on their flying lap, and remember, they only have 1 flying lap to do in each of the 15-minute sessions. So once you're onto your flying lap, that's your one opportunity.
And the other key to a good lap here is not to go too quickly on your out lap. Remember, you've got an out lap, a timed lap, a flying lap, and then an in lap. Forget about the in lap, we're not concerned about that. It's this qualifying lap that we're now watching Mexico on. And because it's a long lap, 3.44 miles, exactly 1 mile longer than the racetrack that we just left in Australia, Eastern Creek. So it is key to do the out lap fairly slowly to the midpoint, then gradually just build up speed to ensure that you get the maximum longevity, the maximum performance out of your tyre on that one vital lap.
up to turn 4. This is taken in second gear at around 60 miles an hour, 90 kilometres per hour. And now turns 5 and 6. These are two very challenging corners where they're carrying a lot of speed through this section, and good aerodynamic stability is crucial. We'll see some very quick cars through there. I think Luis Diaz just making sure he gets a solid first lap in here. Now coming through a double corner, the right-handers at turn 7 and 8, and making the exit cleanly.
Then it's dropped downhill to one of the slower corners, turn 9 all the way down to second gear. It's easy to overrun into this corner. We've seen drivers also being a little bit too greedy on the throttle, trying to get the power down, and actually as a consequence breaking traction and leaving big black lines.
And now coming into the latter part of the lap. This is turn 11 now, the quick chicane. Listen to the engine here. Almost flat out through there, and you could see the front wheels working. And then there's this tricky braking section. They're braking on a curve into 14.
So it's important to get a good clean exit. That was not ideal, but not too bad. Now the run down into turn 15. This is a very wide approach into turn 15. A variety of lines are taken, but it's the exit speed that is the key to the lap. You can come in and turn in, as we're seeing here, Luis Diaz in the Team Mexico entry, and then exiting early rather than later. We've seen Pakistan, for example, exiting much later and being very quick as a consequence.
So he takes the fastest time. Lebanon had just set the benchmark, but now it's a 1:55.775 lap for Mexico.
And compared to what they did this morning on used tyres at a 58.8, so it's virtually 3 seconds difference between the tyre being fresh and the tyre being tired.
Now India, the youngster who has raced here in the past in Formula BMW, it's Arman Ibrahim. He was only 15 years old when he won a Formula BMW race here earlier this season. Now he's all of 16 years of age, but he's not been doing a bad job so far in A1 Grand Prix, and the team hoping for good things from him. Last time out at Eastern Creek, he finished 17th in the sprint and in 13th place in the feature race. Yet to score points, but look at the split time. He's not far off that Mexican.
Good effort from the young Indian driver. In the meantime, Hayanari Shimoda has gone second quickest for Japan on a 1:56.074, some 0.3 of a second slower than Mexico.
Yeah, impressed by Luis Diaz's first effort, actually, considering he's in his first qualifying session in an A1 Grand Prix car. Let's just see what Ibrahim manages out of the final corner here, coming up to cross the line, and I don't think it's going to match Portugal, who's just gone fastest, but he does go second, so he goes faster than Mexico. That's a good effort. Gary Ailes just on the right hand side of the picture there, former touring car driver and touring car team boss, helping with the Indian team, and that's a good effort.
Yes, for a young 16-year-old to go second quickest ahead of more experiences. Now Germany has gone quickest, 1:55.067. That's the fastest lap we've seen over all 2 days of running so far here in Sepang.
So now we're beginning to see some of the heavy hitters out there, and that includes this car, the Czech Republic, Thomas Enger, because he didn't go particularly well in Eastern Creek. He was going much more quickly at Estoril in Portugal, and in certainly the practice sessions on Friday he was looking pretty effective. Looked as though they'd got this car quite well dealed in. So an excellent effort. Oh, and a bit of a slide through that fast chicane from Enger, but he gathered it together beautifully. Now watch him into turn 14.
Just under a 1/10 of a second down in that final sector, so he comes out of turn 14. A good clean exit. There's grass on the exit. Somebody's run wide and kicked grass and dust. Now drivers will have to be aware of that. They'll have to try and avoid getting on that, so look for a quick run. But Team USA 1:54.970, first driver, first nation to get into the 1:54.
So Brian Herter, driving for the USA, has gone fastest here. I don't think this lap's going to be better for Thomas Enger. Let's see it cross the line. No, it's a slow lap of 56.2. They'll be disappointed with that, even if that was an older set of tyres. I'm not sure. I think they had 3 sets to use themselves, so that was a bit of a disappointing run for the Czech Republic.
Well, let's see what happens. They will have fresh rubber to put on. That may have been a set of tyres that was fresh-ish, but not brand new.
Now the Netherlands got 7th, only 7th. Now he's only got 2 sets of tyres to use.
Yes,
so
but
that would have been,
that's the set of tyres he used at the very end of that official practice session this morning. So this is in effect little more than a sighting lap for the Netherlands. They've gone 7th quickest. It's still USA, Germany. Brazil has gone 3rd quickest. Nelson Piquet Jr. on 1:55.195.
Portugal 4th fastest, and that's definitely a better effort than we've seen through the practice sessions. But what about France? Now remember, it's Alexander Premack driving for the team this weekend. He drove for the team at the very first meeting at Brands Hatch, and then he also drove for them at Estoril in Portugal. He took 2 wins in Portugal. At Brands Hatch, he had a problem in the second race, but he had finished second in the first one. But he's yet to get a pole position. Interestingly enough, Nicolas Lapierre, who's the other Team France drivers, had pole on every occasion he's been in the car.
In the meantime, Ireland has leapt into 4th place. Ralph Fairman Jr., a man who's very familiar indeed with this racetrack, probably knows it better than anyone else out there.
And Premat's up on the split. He's going faster than the USA time. Brian Herter's 154.970 is under threat here from the team that has been dominating A1 Grand Prix at recent events. Let's just watch. You've got the telemetry on the right there. Top speed 264 kilometres per hour before he got onto the brakes for the left-hander.
So Alexander Premat has not looked comfortable, has not looked convincing so far, but right now he could go provisionally quickest.
Let's see what the time is across. Yes, he does, by nearly 0.4 of a second. Chris Gorn on the right, his race engineer, and Jean-Paul Driot there looking quite satisfied. French puff of the lips, and they've gone fastest again.
And by 0.4 of a second. Let's watch Team Pakistan. Adam Khan, again, very, very impressive this morning when he went out on new rubber, and in fact ended up second quickest after 1 hour and a 155.4.
So what can Adam do this time? This afternoon he was very, very confident. That was a bit of a slide. Looks as though he could have lost a bit of time there. Switzerland's just gone fastest. Switzerland have put in a 154.441. Neil Yarni has set the pace here. He's gone quicker than France and the USA. But Pakistan are hopeful of, well, he said, a top 5 position. But remember, they only got 2 sets of tyres, so I would imagine he's probably going to be on a used set of tyres for this, his first run.
I would think so, but again, it's difficult for teams to make a judgment. They're looking skyward. It is getting more and more grey as we look out of the commentary booth. There you see, and that shot looking down to turn 15, just how grey it is, and that's getting more and more over the circuit. Mistake under brakes, he lost time, he lost his momentum. He's not going to get the benefit of what would have been a good outlap for Pakistan and Adam Khan.
It's not going to be bad though. Let's just see we're all 11th. It's just outside the top 10, a 155.398. He's given the in signal. There's not much doubt about that. They're only allowed to do the one flying lap.
That still was quicker than he did this morning when he was second quickest, and that little bobble or weave that he had in turn 15 certainly took 1/10 or 2/10 off his time.
China are on circuit as well, trying to get their hot lap underway. Great Britain's on a hot lap as well at the moment, and you can see no, you can't see them there. China still going out, I think, on their lap at the moment. Switzerland have set the pace in this first qualifying segment. Now, China were very quick this morning. They did go for the new tyre option, and they were 3rd fastest. So I wonder whether they're going to be able to get into the top 10. That apparently is what they're aiming for this weekend.
Well, the confidence, the change in the body language of the car, and just that of the whole team, they think that they're getting there probably about 3 or 4 races ahead of where they had expected to be. Very hard on the brakes into turn 1, maybe a little bit wide, and you see the 20th, because the first 13 cars are actually covered by less than a second.
Very close. We expected this session to be tight, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Down to the final corner comes Tong Yijiang, down to second gear, and now trying to pick the throttle up on the exit. Where is this going to put Team China? Lebanon currently 21st and last of those that have done a lap. China across the line 22nd, so not that quick yet, but they had less tyres to use than some of the teams, so they may be waiting for a later segment before perhaps they put a new set of tyres on.
And I suspect that there was a run on a set of tyres that had done some mileage, certainly not fresh or certainly not brand new. As we look here at Alex Young really wringing the neck of his A1GP car around a racetrack he knows extremely well, both from formative years and from Formula One.
Yeah, a bit of a hero out here in Malaysia is Alex Young. Have a huge amount of attention on him here this weekend, and a bit of a flick through the chicane there. He's a second down on the second split though, so a second would, as you say, put him as the difference between being fastest and being 14th. That's how close they are.
Also, we notice with Alex Young, he uses a lot more curve on the inside of corners than probably anybody else. Now that's his local knowledge, but also it's just over driving sometimes. You maybe think you're going to be quick by using a lot of curve. It doesn't always follow. On the exit right out to the edge, that isn't going to be too much of a problem. It's in the apexes where he's using a lot more than most people.
He goes 15th fastest, so Malaysia is well inside the top 20, but they'll be hoping for better than that. They've been inside the top 10, and that was at Brands Hatch and indeed at Estoril when Faris Fauzi was qualifying the car there. Indonesia, their big rivals, neighbouring country, they're down in 18th by the way, but there's the fastest man so far. Oh, we've just seen that Italy have popped in a quick lap to go third at the end of the session. Still a few seconds to go, but I think that's the last car to actually record a time. Switzerland fastest then on a 1 minute 54.441. France just 1/10 of a second slower. Italy now third, Great Britain fourth, USA fifth, Germany sixth. And I have to say that I think that German effort is probably one of the most outstanding performances of the day. Timo Scheider has not slept overnight. He's travelled here having missed the practice session on Friday, and he's just set the 6th fastest time.
Well, in the background there is rain falling. You can see under that big black cloud the little bit of lighter shading of grey. That is rain. So within 15 minutes this could be a very wet track.
Well, the end of the session coming up. Checkered flag is being waved, and everybody has set their first flying lap. There is Alexander Premat discussing that lap with Chris Gaughan. They are second fastest at the moment. Now remember, you have to get 2 quick times, add them together to give you the aggregate time. So it's no good just doing 1 flying lap. You've got to put in 2 flying laps between these 4 sessions. Let's just confirm those positions. It's Switzerland, France, Italy, top 3. Great Britain 4th. USA 5th. That's such a much better effort from the USA than we've seen recently. Germany 6th. Outstanding. Then New Zealand, Brazil, Ireland and Portugal. That's the top 10. Behind them we've got Canada, Australia, Pakistan 13th, South Africa 14th, then India, Malaysia, Mexico, the Netherlands. Now they were on old tyres, so we'll see them move up. Then Indonesia, Japan, Austria, the Czech Republic, Lebanon and China. That's how the 24 cars.
So Neil Yarni setting the fastest time of qualifying session 1 as the clouds roll in. Welcome back to Sepang, Malaysia for the 5th race event in the A1 Grand Prix series. Let's go trackside and join our commentators John Watson and Ben Edwards for qualifying session 2.
We're all set for the second qualifying segment to begin here at Sepang in Malaysia, and with changeable weather very likely. It just depends on whether these big black clouds do bypass the track or not. Everyone is desperate to get out onto the circuit as quickly as possible and get the best out of their new tyres.
Well, it is a mad charge out of the pit lane. I think virtually the entire 24-car field is coming on, and this is in itself going to cause great problems because those in the front of the field will be completing a lap and then on a slowing down lap, and they may well be caught by those that are coming out of the very tail, the tail of which currently is being, I shouldn't say led, but the tail is Team Portugal and Alvaro Parent.
The good news is it is a long track, 3.4 miles long, gives them a bit of a chance to spread out, particularly for those guys who come out at the back. They can afford to drop away a little bit, but look at Jos Verstappen. He's going hard even on his out lap here to get round as quickly as possible and go on to his flying lap.
Well, he does not want to be overtaken, especially with Team New Zealand right behind him, shadowing every move. So Netherlands want to complete this lap. The danger again is that you go too hard on this out lap, which is what people are doing for understandable reasons, and they in fact use the best of the tyre, which by the time they start their flying lap, the lap that's going to count for the aggregated times, as Ralph Fairman dives down the inside of Team Japan. Nevertheless, if you've got to gamble, you really are throwing the dice in this session.
He had to do that. He had to make a bit of a move on Japan there to get himself into some clean air. Now he can control the pace a little bit. Thomas Enger has left it a bit later to come out onto the circuit for the Czech Republic. He's looking for the clear track that some others are going to miss out on, and the track temperature is being checked once again. They must be dropping as the cloud comes overhead. Let's just watch Verstappen. He's now coming down the back straight before he can start his flying lap.
Yes, and currently all these cars in view are running effectively at the speed they would do on their formal qualifying lap. Look at the cars spreading out, fanning out as they come down, 3 abreast into turn 15. All they're going to do is trip over one another. But watch Team Allen. He's made space for himself. He's got Germany behind. Germany clearly trying to get past Lebanon.
This could be real problems for some people. Germany didn't get past Lebanon, and unless he does so up this straight, it's unlikely he's going to be able to do it, and that will effectively blow his attempts of getting a good lap in. But Ralph Furman made sure of getting some clear air there, so he's in a bit of space. So is Jos Verstappen. I think New Zealand managed to drop back a little bit from the Netherlands too, so they'll all be trying to get a clean lap in here. Crucial part of qualifying.
Well, you expect that Netherlands, New Zealand and Ireland are the three nations that are going to most benefit in this session, because they are the three that have made that little bit of a break, have got themselves into the vital clear air. They're not being affected by a car ahead of them, and there's nobody behind challenging them. So all the focus is just on making sure they do the cleanest, neatest but most productive lap possible.
All of the cars are on circuit, John. I don't think we've seen this in qualifying in A1 Grand Prix yet. Every single car is either on a hot lap, and 4 or 5 of them are still on their out laps. But all the cars... There's Lebanon.
Lebanon spun, and the body
it's raining
again.
there, look. It's wet over on that section of circuit. Oh, and Australia been off as well. They're all getting caught out by the rain. Oh, they've got to make it back round. This could be the defining moment of qualifying.
France is coming through turn 15, but are they going on to a lap, or are they just completing a lap? I suspect they're just going on to a lap.
You're right, they're only just going on to their hot lap, Team France, so that's going to hurt them considerably. France have left it too late here. They should have gone out with the other front runners.
We're still waiting for the first car. Here it is, the Netherlands, followed by New Zealand, followed by Ireland. Those three nations are the best chance of getting the top 3 times in this segment of qualifying.
But Verstappen, remember, had a slower time from the first segment of qualifying because he didn't go out on a new set of tyres. This could play into the hands of Ralph Furman. Netherlands are the first to get an aggregate time in, but what about Ireland?
New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand. Ireland does it. Ireland goes quicker than the Netherlands and New Zealand. The times now all changing, but that could have been the lap for Ralph Furman. It was a great lap. A 1:54.7 from Ralph Furman. Brilliant.
Team Switzerland, Neil Yarni comes into turn 15. The track is getting wetter by the second.
Can Switzerland reclaim their top spot? Let's take a look. They were fastest, remember, after the first segment. Here he comes up to take the line, and it's not going to be enough. Oh, yes, he has done it. Great effort from Neil Yarni in changeable conditions.
By a second. Malaysia, by the way, host nation, they've just gone 5th. We're 4th until Switzerland went 1st.
Well, it's all happening, but what about France? They're struggling because they're that much behind on the lap. It's wetter for them than it was for the others, and surely this is going to be very tough for Alexander Premat.
The problem is that there's rain on some parts of the track and not on other parts. It's raining on the pit straight and into turn 15. It's relatively dry, or it looks like in fact the rain is just beginning. There you see it, it's almost like a curtain as you come down this back straight. Suddenly now the track goes wet.
Yeah, the sector time was pretty good. It would be good enough for him to hold on to second, but of course it's very wet here now. Got to tread fairly carefully. They can carry a lot of speed in there despite it being wet, and this is still going to be a pretty good lap from Team France. It hasn't all gone completely wrong. Let's see where it puts them. They're going to be up there somewhere. They go second fastest despite the rain.
Well, that's a fine effort from Team France and Premat. They did gamble, but the gamble has paid off, and the rain is falling on one part of the track. It's caught out Australia, it caught out Lebanon, and we have to wait to see where China is as well.
Great Britain are 4th, so Great Britain managed to go ahead of New Zealand. It's Switzerland, France, Ireland, Great Britain, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Malaysia, Brazil 8th, then Portugal 9th, Italy, one of the big losers on this second qualifying segment, because remember they were 3rd after the first one, and now they've dropped all the way down to 10th position. Indonesia 11th and USA 12th.
Well, we look at Team Germany as they make their way back, and they're just going to go straight into the pit lane. Of course, everybody is on a set of dry weather slicks, but that rain is reminiscent of what we had on Thursday here in the evening. A monsoon fell, and the track is, well, 3/4 of it now must be wet. There's only a little segment around turns 9, 10 and 11, 12 that are currently, or we believe, still dry.
Well, everybody heading back in. Of course, they've all done their flying lap. They're not allowed to go around for another lap anyway. And somebody was just finishing off their hot lap there as they came out as China. Right, so China... actually, no, they've only just gone on to their hot lap, so they were the last to come out. And Tong Yijiang is going to find himself slithering around in these wet conditions. It's going to be tough for him.
Yes, he's heading into the rain now. At the end of the pit straight, it looked like it was reasonable, but you can see the sheen on the surface of the tyres. And he's got to be very careful because everything will be totally different. 3.3 seconds down, that is simply the consequence of slick tyres on a wet track. Now, don't overdrive, just make sure you make your apexes. Don't be too greedy on the throttle, pick it up. All he has to do is get round. He's got a clear track, but it is very, very tricky. From here onwards, the track starts to get wet.
interesting, isn't it, to pick up where the track conditions do worsen. And we certainly haven't got the rain everywhere. Still some sections of the track looking reasonably dry. Bit of a slide now, though.
And this is where it starts. This is the exit of turn 8. He runs down to turn 9, one of the slow corners in the track. You can see the rain on the camera lens.
Yeah, and this is where it's a very tight corner, where it's difficult to get on the power even in the dry, let alone in damp conditions on slick tyres. But he accelerates quickly out of there, and still the track not looking too bad. Bit greasy, bit slippery in this section. Your car wobbling around. He's out on the curb now through the quick chicane, which is not nearly as quick in these conditions. Again, the car's moving around a great deal, and now we know this section quite slippery. 6.6 seconds down on the aggregate set by Switzerland. Switzerland with that 54.5 second lap in the damp conditions that we had in this second qualifying, are almost, even with that lap, they were still as quick, if not quicker, than they were in the first qualifying segment.
Well, that's the difference between a used tyre and a new tyre. In spite of these conditions, the gains that you made on the part of the track that was still dry, unaffected by the rain. The rain didn't hit the whole circuit, it sort of caught one half of it. China comes across, it goes 22nd. Australia and Lebanon have not completed laps. You saw Lebanon going off. We saw just very briefly Australia, I beg your pardon, getting totally caught out, and that car went into the gravel.
Yes, Canada as well had a major problem on that lap. There's a big smile there from Ralph Furman. That was all a bit desperate, but they are third fastest now. They haven't quite managed to claim a front row spot, but his second flying lap, 1 minute 54.735, well timed. He managed to get past that Japanese car on the out lap, and they are in a good position. They're ahead of Great Britain, but Great Britain right up there as well. And a handshake there for Neil Yarni, because the likelihood is Switzerland have probably taken their first pole position in A1 Grand Prix. It's a new pole sitter provisionally, because it's unlikely we're going to see the track conditions improving enough to see them back out to improve on their times, and that could be the opportunity Neil Yarni's been looking for, to take pole position. There's the Dutch car, and Netherlands currently 6th.
Well, we've seen 2 sessions of this qualifying segments take place, and clearly the track isn't going to just dry in time for the third segment to begin, and it's questionable if anybody will want to go out. There are wet weather tyres available. They may want to go out on the wet weather tyre. It will be the first opportunity any team will have had to do so. Clearly no chance of an improvement, but it's just information for the team, because we don't know what's going to happen 24 hours from now. And
I wonder how quickly the track, the areas that it has been raining on, will dry out. It probably will. It's still high temperatures. We've got a bit of a breeze as the marshals try and keep themselves protected out there. Got to be careful that those don't blow away, because it is blowing quite hard at the moment. I'm just looking across the flags on top of the pit garages. They're straining away in the wind. And there's the view from the helicopter above. And there's the thunder collapsing away around us. So we've got thunder. We next need a touch of lightning, and that'll make it ace, king, queen. Well, Switzerland have gone fastest. They could be on for pole here. Let's hear from Neil Yarni.
Neil, that looked like a matter of good timing, bad timing. What do you think the chances of getting another quick lap in are?
Well, already now it was raining at the back quite a bit, and you were sliding around, so I was quite amazed just being 1/10 slower. But, well, for me it doesn't matter. It can rain or not. We'll do another lap if I have to do.
Are you enjoying Sepang then?
Oh, yeah, for sure at the moment.
Neil, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks.
Neil Yarni, who will be the third driver for Red Bull next year, so good experience around this Malaysian circuit. But there, I said it was blowing hard. We haven't really seen the wind blowing this hard since Thursday afternoon. It was blowing pretty hard then, and that will of course help to dry the circuit off a little bit, but that depends on the rain staying away. Well, further to the east of Malaysia, over the Philippines, there is a typhoon which has got winds over 100 miles an hour. Now, I don't think it's going to reach us by the weekend, but you can see just how much wind has come up in the last 15-20 minutes, and with it the rain. Alex Young of Malaysia has gone 7th fastest. I guess he should know this place better than most. I wonder what he thinks of the conditions. Let's hear from him.
Alex, it's getting a little bit blustery in this pit lane here. What was it like out on the track?
It was really tough, that second run, you know. The first third of the track was dry, and we were just pushing so hard because we knew it was going to rain, and turn 7 and 8 was completely wet, and the car in front of me and I were completely sideways through there, and the Australian car went off, but just managed to hang on for the rest of the lap and actually go quicker despite the damp conditions. So if it rains now, you know, I'll be quite happy at 7th at the moment.
What is the plan for the next session? See what the weather does first?
Exactly. it's lost a lot of heat now, so I don't really know how quickly it's going to dry out. There's a lot more time to come from us, so if it is dry, I do fancy our chances of moving up a bit more. But we'll wait and see.
Alex, thanks very much.
Thanks.
So Alex Young there, who currently is 7th fastest. There's a big clap of thunder in the background here at the moment as we wait to see what the conditions are going to do. Malaysia's best qualifying effort so far is actually an 8th on the grid. Despite the fact that he feels there's more in hand, that would still be their best starting position in the series so far, and that would help attract some more fans along on race day, I'm sure. But France at the moment are 2nd fastest. Premat was a bit later out than the others, but he still claimed that 2nd spot. Let's hear from him.
Alex, you and I are getting wet, we're getting cold in the pit lane. Are you going to go out again? They're going to put a wet setup on the car, or you think it's going to stay dry?
No, I think we will stay in the box because it's raining a lot, and so I think this is not really good to do the best time. I think we did a bit mistake to start maybe too late since Jean-Nil, but I think this is really good to do the second time.
Where are you getting your weather information from? Have you got someone on the roof looking up?
Yeah, for sure. The weather is really nice. I hope to wet or to dry because I love the both conditions. So we will see tomorrow, or maybe in the qualifying 3 and 4.
I don't know about you, but with that thunder and that lightning behind me, I'm getting inside. I'll see you inside.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, there is a fair bit of lightning around now in various parts of the circuit. That was a great effort from Premat. I thought he'd gone out too late there, John. I thought he said that they probably did go out too late, but he still managed. Look, you've got the times here. And what's interesting, as Neil Yarni said, was that he was only a 10th of a second on his second best lap. That was when it was raining. He was only a 10th of a second slower than he had been on his first qualifying segment.
But the reason why is because he was doing everything with more time. He wasn't pushing the car. He wasn't forcing to try and drag a time out. Very often that's the case, and drivers sometimes they go out on an out lap and their segment times on an out lap are better than they are when they're on a flying lap. They come in and say, why? And the answer is simply that you weren't overloading the car, you weren't overdriving the car.
Well, it looks like Yarni was the only man in the 1 minute 54s in that rain-affected session. But look at Robbie Kerr's time, 4th there, and he did a 55.009. So he was actually 2nd fastest in that second segment of qualifying when it had the rain coming down. So that's a pretty impressive effort there from Robbie Kerr, and Matt Halliday of New Zealand does also an excellent job from him. Now further down there are a few people very disappointed because Herter for the USA had been right up there after the first segment but lost a lot of time in the second one, and others who are big disappointments as well. Thomas Enger, he dropped back a long way, and particularly Canada have been fast all weekend, and now look where they are because he had a mishap on that lap. He's 22nd, Australia's 23rd, and they're just ahead of Lebanon, who we saw off as well. Khalil Bashir didn't set a time. So there are some different stories up and down the pit lane. There's some delight amongst some of the teams, but there's some real disappointment with others.
Welcome back to Sepang and to Malaysia for the 5th race event in the A1 Grand Prix calendar. Let's go back trackside and join our commentary team for qualifying session 3.
Great Britain pit, they've done well. They are 4th on the grid provisionally, but everyone looking skywards to see just what's going to happen.
Taking photographs of the weather. In fact, the trouble with the camera actually makes it look much brighter, and these pictures are actually amplified almost by the camera lens. It is much darker in real life than it is as you see it on the TV screen.
Yes, it looks pretty gloomy from where we're watching on our commentary position, just underneath the roof of the grandstand.
Certainly the pit lane looks dry, and Nicolas Lapierre, he seems fairly happy with life, having done so well on his 2 occasions for Team France.
Yeah, there's Thomas Enger. I don't think he's going to be quite so satisfied. He's down in 18th place for the Czech Republic. But what about China? They were a bit disappointed after that second run. Let's now hear from Teng Yijiang in pit lane.
Tengi, as we stand in the pit lane, we're surrounded by thunder and lightning. You were as quick as lightning this morning. Do you think you're going to get a chance to go out again?
I don't know, we'll see, because I feel now the third qualifier is already gone. It's not possible to do a fast lap. And I just waiting for the last qualifier. I hope the weather can be better, and I will try my best for the last qualifier.
You've got no plans to go out with a wet weather setup on the car just in case it rains like this tomorrow?
because if go with the wet set of tire, just make no sense. You can't do fast lap time. Also, one lap you can't get any information from that. So we're just waiting if the track condition can be better.
You were second quickest this morning in warm-up or practice. Do you think you're going to be in the top 5, perhaps?
It's hard to say, but because this morning a lot of drivers didn't use the new tire. I used the new tire, but this morning last lap I was doing quite well. The qualifier is different, so but the weather also difficult to control.
Yeah, unless the weather changes, no one could do anything about it. Thank you, thanks.
Thank you.
So that was Tang Yijian for China, and it's been a very disappointing run for them so far, but not for this man, Neil Yarni in the middle there, Max Velti on the right, team boss of Switzerland, and yeah, that's right, that Neil Yarni should have a smile on his face after that impressive effort. Max worked out here in Malaysia, on the motorsport side of things, for a couple of years, and I should think he's pretty satisfied with the work that his driver has done so far.
Yes, and it's not a question of just sitting it out. They don't need to go out until track conditions are at least equal to how they were at the very early part of segment 2 of qualifying. Again, look at the wind blowing into that very grey background, and rain is still falling out on the far side of the circuit. So conditions are not going to be favourable to anybody looking for an improvement. Then there, the rain is falling now in the pit lane.
Well, let's now hear from Team USA's driver, Brian Herter.
Brian, welcome to A1GP. Whether it's hot and sweaty or cold and wet, you're going to get wet in this race series. You enjoying it?
Well, the series itself, yeah, it's good. I'm not, obviously, like a lot of folks, I'm not real thrilled with the conditions right now. We had a good first lap, and then our second lap, I got caught out with the rain that was starting to fall and ended up going off track a bit, and so it put us down a little ways. And we got a little work to do to get back up there. The car's good enough to do it. It's just a case of whether it's dry enough, and at the moment it doesn't look like it will be.
You've got a new race engineer, haven't you? You brought him over from the States, someone you know well?
Yeah, Gerald Tyler came over with me from the States for this weekend, and it's just for me, it was just going with someone I was a little more familiar with, gave me a comfort level, and that seems to be good. And just second weekend in the car, all that stuff helps.
Dave Price, who runs your team, told me that he speaks the same language as you.
I thought we all spoke English.
But motorsport English and American slightly different. You have what, push instead of understeer and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand all that. The thing against me is I don't know metric very well. So when they start throwing the metric at me, I always ask them to convert it to standard for me.
Hey, I'll give you measurements in cubits if you want. Thanks, Brian.
All right, thanks.
So Brian Herter there, the man driving for Team USA for the second occasion. He raced, of course, at Eastern Creek as well, and he's currently 12th fastest, but a big disappointment that, because he was right up there after the first segment, and as he said, made a little mistake on the second lap when he hit the rain. Well, the third segment is underway, let me tell you. The green flag has been out for a little while, but no one's going out. No great surprise about that. They're all sitting there in the pit lane. Another driver to have lost out in that second run was Italy's Enrico Toccocello. Let's hear from him.
Enrico, no one's going out at the moment. What was it like driving in that last session?
Unfortunately, it started raining in the last my 3 corners, so maybe it was possible to, if I go early, in front, when the session started, was better, because I lost a lot. I lost 2 seconds in the last sector because it started raining.
But you've done well in the first session. You must be pleased with the car. Is it getting back on the pace?
Yeah, fortunately we found a good setup, and we found just in qualifying. And the first session I did a really good lap, and the second session was half seconds in front, half second better than the other lap. So I'm really confident now, and I hope that now maybe it's not possible. Unfortunately, the raining came, and we start in 10th position at the moment for tomorrow. Anyway, I'm happy because the setup now is good, and so I'm confident for the race.
Thanks very much.
And of course, this is a track that overtaking should be possible, because we've got a couple of good long straights, some nice tight corners. That one a crucial corner, turn 15. And although he's ended up 10th after setting the third fastest time in the first session, look at the times here, the 2 times added together to create the aggregate time. Now the problem for Italy, down in 10th, look at his Q1 time, 54.799. That was third fastest, but the problem was the Q2 time, 57.095, and that's dropped him down to 10th because his aggregate not fast enough to match the likes of Switzerland and France.
Welcome back to Sepang, Malaysia, and to the 5th race weekend of the A1 Grand Prix Series. Let's go back trackside and join our commentary team.
Ben, I think you're going to see aquaplaning as you come through 3. The way the track falls away from down there, all the way down the dip, that is now really saturated. That's virtually on the limit of the grip potential of the Cooper wet weather tyres. There's so much water there, it's running across the track as well as falling vertically. Let's look again in turn 1 as Diaz comes in. It's just the back end swings around, just a little bit too much throttle, and I'm talking about millimetres on the throttle pedal, and around she goes.
So Luis Diaz getting into a bit of trouble, but out on circuit is Nelson Piquet Jr. As we heard from Emerson Fittipaldi, they're going to use this as valuable experience of circuit conditions. But again, you can see just how much that car is moving around, and the danger of aquaplaning ever present. And there's a great view with the clear visor on now. Listen to the engine too, you'll hear that wheel spin.
Look at the revs, he's barely using the throttle at all. He's running up to about 6,500 of the 9,000 RPM available there. Piquet gets caught out in turn 4. Quite simply, came up to the corner, there's water running across the racetrack, the car just aquaplanes under braking, and he just cannot get the car stopped.
No, and even trying to get any power on at all, just sees the back end waving around. That's another view of it from the other angle.
And I think that might have been France, I'm not sure. There we look at Austria, they've also been caught out, that's understandable. Matthias Lauda not as experienced in these conditions and spins the car around. Just needs to be very careful when he's doing that, not to let the engine run too freely when he's not moving forward. So conditions on the pit lane not much better than they are actually out on track.
No, that's right, things are a bit tricky out there at the moment. Back on board with Piquet. It is fun when they've got the clear visors on and you can really see into their eyes in these conditions where the concentration needs to be so intense. There is Stephen Simpson for South Africa.
But that's coming down into turn 15, and contrast that with the parallel straight, much, much worse, going up the straight rather than coming into turn 15.
So he comes out of turn 15. Back, is he coming up or is he coming in?
He's coming in the pit lane.
Yeah, coming into pit lane now. So end of that particular little run, just to get a bit more of a feel for it. But he is 13th provisionally on the grid. I mean, it looks like he will start 13th. I can't see any changes to the grid positions. That will actually be South Africa's best qualifying performance of the series so far.
If conditions are like this for either this 15-lap sprint race or the 30-lap feature race, in my view, there's no doubt that this race would have to be run behind a safety car. You could not let a race take place in these conditions. Look at that, look at the water. I mean, that car is the nearest thing to a speedboat. Instead of a steering wheel, he's probably got a rudder in the cockpit.
Amazing what the amount of standing water that is out there now. These Cooper tyres have been designed as a wet tyre to deal with very heavy conditions like this. They know they're coming to circuits like Malaysia where you can get these sudden rainstorms. So it is a wet weather. It's not a monsoon tyre as such, but it's a wet tyre that has been developed with this kind of rain in mind. But when it is this wet, it's almost impossible.
Just looking at Team Austria, Matthias Lauda, that's a replay of what occurred a little earlier, unless he's gone and repeated the thing at the same particular part of track. And I think, in fact, what he has done is repeating it at the same part of track.
This qualifying segment is almost over. The checker flag coming out in just a few seconds as the countdown clock ticks away. And this was another spin. Or was that the same one earlier? I think that's a different spin.
That's a different spin. Oh, and he clattered across the gravel big time, and that's turn 14. In fact, and he stole the car. We saw him go into the pit lane. We believed it was the pit lane. Now he has had a spin out at turn 14, and the engine is stalled.
So there's the checkered flag out, and Piquet ends it up in the gravel trap. Just looking at the time, sort of.
In fact, it's at turn 1.
Yeah, turn 1. Yeah. So at the end of the start-finish straight, that's where he went off. Hopefully they'll be able to get that back into the pits. Still shaking their head down there in that Brazilian pit. There is one more qualifying segment to go. Another 15-minute session. Absolutely no chance of any changes being made to this grid, though.
And the deficit of going out in these conditions is it means an awful lot more work for the team, because when your car goes off into the gravel like that, it means gravel gets everywhere. So you've got to put the car up on axle stands, you've got to take the underbody off the car, you've got to go through every part of the car to ensure that there is no gravel that could be in a place that might cause a problem. If you look at Mexico's, they judicially, I mean, really tippy-toe stuff. That was through turn 14 leading on to the back straight.
Very wet conditions then. Switzerland, though, the fastest car here and all set to start from pole position in the sprint race for the A1 Grand Prix of Nations, presented by Astro here in Malaysia. And, well, I'm it's good to see that we've got another car up there. Of course, he's been pretty consistent throughout the season so far in good results, getting onto the podium. Had a second place finish both at Estoril and in the sprint race at the Lausitz-Ring. Had a third place finish last time out at Eastern Creek, but it's the first time that we haven't seen either France or Brazil on pole position. There's Matthias Lauda just back into the pits. Another good effort in this session, or in the earlier two time sessions, from New Zealand. And Matt Halliday is going to line up in 5th place on the grid. Let's hear from him now.
Matt, it's wetter than it can be in New Zealand here at the moment, but you chose not to go out. Why?
Well, I think it's good to go out and have a run in the wet. We were just sort of, I guess we didn't go out for a couple of reasons, but we'll be out on the next one and have a bit of a run round. I think this time it was just too wet, the downpour and a lot of aquaplaning, and hopefully it just dries up a little bit so we can get a good feeling for the wet for tomorrow in case it rains in the next one.
I suppose the trade-off is that if you go out in too wet conditions and with these tyres, you could bend the car.
Well, I think if it's this wet tomorrow, they're not going to run in these kind of conditions because this is like monsoon, and it's just safe. So there's no point to run to risk the car in this condition, But for tomorrow, for sure, for the next session, for sure, we'll have a run in the wet just for tomorrow and get a feeling for it,
I can hear the jacks behind us, the air jacks. Are they putting wets on your car now, then?
Yeah, it looks a bit like it, mate. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, but it looks a bit wild out there at the moment.
Well, good luck. Hope you stay dry.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Sepang at Malaysia for the 5th race in the A1 Grand Prix series. Let's go trackside and join our commentary team for the final session of the day.
Still having a good old look at the track to see whether it is worth going out, venturing forth on a wet track. And Jos Verstappen didn't go out in that 3rd qualifying segment, so he may well choose to put the wets on and just get an exploratory lap underway.
I would imagine that most of the 24 nations here, again, rain is still falling around certain areas of this 3.44 mile circuit. Nevertheless, I do think it's important to go out in these conditions, get in a feel. You're only going to get one flying lap, or 3 laps in total, so you've got to send your driver out, like it or not.
Let's hear now from Stephen Simpson.
Slightly quieter Stephen Simpson, because I know that your voice is disappearing, probably because of all this weather. You went out in that last wet session. How difficult was it?
Yeah, it was difficult. I got as far as the 2nd corner and realised that there was just so much standing water. It would be silly to carry on. As I got further around, it was actually a lot drier through the middle section, but then down the back straight, it was just aquaplaning everywhere. So I couldn't really learn anything, but we're going to have another go now and see whether the standing water's gone, and let's just literally see if we can learn something in case it rains tomorrow.
You were up there in the first session of qualifying. Are you happy with how the car's going?
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is our best qualifying so far. It was a bit frustrating because I think 0.4 of a second or 0.5 of a second would have put me well inside the top 10. So it's really, really close. So, our speed is getting a lot better. It's just the way it goes.
Stephen, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Stephen Simpson always with a big smile on his face, and as he says, something to celebrate. They have got their best qualifying position so far. Austria, though, down in 20th place, and Lauda back out once more.
And these conditions, believe it or not, are very much better than they were in the 3rd segment of this 4-segment qualifying session. And Matthias Lauda, again, just on an exploratory lap, we saw him get caught out by a lot of standing water further around the lap. And now the racetrack, this is what I would call a wet racetrack. What we saw in the 3rd segment was just a racetrack swamped. Impossible to hold a motor race in that, other than under the auspices of running under a safety car, and that's what would happen without any hesitation. The cars would run behind a safety car.
Czech Republic deciding to come on to circuit as well, so Thomas Enger is going to put in a lap on these wet tyres, and so is, by the look of it, Alex Premat driving for Team France. 2nd fastest, remember. He'll be lining up on the outside of the front row for the sprint race, so he's yet to get a pole position, has Alexander Premat. His teammate Nicolas Lapierre's been on pole position every time he's been in the car, but it hasn't come together for Premat in quite the same way. But there's a car that will be starting well up. It's the New Zealand car, Black Beauty they call it, and that will be starting 5th.
And I would expect, of a funny feeling, I don't know why, but New Zealand isn't always the driest nation in the world, and they do run races in wet weather conditions, and Matt Halliday has that sort of confidence about him that says, you know, I don't mind a bit of rain. If it is wet for one of our 2 races on Sunday, I'm ready, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to be intimidated by the weather. I've got an opportunity to get our first win for New Zealand.
We saw in the Malaysia pit garage both Faraz Fauzi and Alex Young. They will be sharing the driving duties tomorrow. In the sprint race and feature race, they'll take it in turns as to who does which, but Alex Young has done the qualifying, and they've earned a good 7th place on the grid for that sprint race. Shimoda's out now too on the wet tyres for Japan, and he will be starting from 19th position on the grid. He would have liked better than that, of course, but he's still dialing himself in a little bit to the A1 Grand Prix car. I think he's pretty much up to speed now that he's done the Eastern Creek meeting, and getting used to the fact that he's driving a car with some 75% less downforce than the sports car that he's been racing in the LMES Championship.
Yes, but of course a car that is slightly lighter, I shouldn't say significantly lighter, and probably a little bit more powerful as well. As we look, there's the car being pushed back in. It's Team USA were preparing to come out. They've just pushed the car back under the shade, so they don't have to rush. They've got some 11 minutes remaining in this session. As we looked at Jos Verstappen in the Netherlands, and now Team USA is preparing to go out on the track as Ananda Mikola for Team Indonesia.
Yes, and he's qualified 11th, so in the private battle between Malaysia and Indonesia, it's Malaysia that's out on top in qualifying with a 7th position, some 4 places ahead of Indonesia. Brian Herter onto circuit once again, just to get some feel for the car in these wet conditions, and the standing water does seem to have dispersed a little. It doesn't look quite as bad as it was earlier on.
The track is, it's improved probably by 100%, but it's still pretty bad. You can see by the amount of spray that's being thrown up as the cars come down Main Straight into turn 1. We've now got Will Davison on track, and it's quite an important session for Team Australia, because for Will Davison, he could actually make a significant improvement in his grid position from 24th up to 23rd.
All the way, 1 position, but at least he wouldn't be last then on the grid. Lebanon and Australia battling for that, because they both had mishaps on the second qualifying segment, the one that really counted. And you can see the car moving around a great deal, but not quite the power boating that we saw in that previous qualifying segment. Still very wet on out of turn 3 though.
But what is it? The Cooper tyres on these A1GP cars are doing a very good job in these conditions. These are what I would call normal wet weather conditions. The drivers are able to use a fair amount of throttle, so there's good traction and they've got good overall grip. You can see the way coming through turn 5. That's a difficult corner at the best of times. Through turn 5, then the switch, the cut back through turn 6, staying well away from those painted curbs, which of course is almost mandatory in these conditions.
Yeah, continues round his first split actually, although of course it's way slow. It's actually quicker than most of the other guys who are out there at the moment. He is pushing that a little bit harder perhaps, with something to chase at 1 position on the grid that he's going for. The decision as to whether he lines up 23rd or 24th. There's no Russian entry here this weekend, so it's the 24 nations who will be contesting this 5th event in A1 Grand Prix.
So, in fact, we've got New Zealand just ahead of Australia, and those 2 teams, apart from their own internal battles, are, New Zealand quite comfortable in 5th place, currently 3rd row of the grid. And that will give Matt Halliday a lot of confidence and reassurance. Much wetter coming through turns 12 and 13 than other parts of the track. Still an element of standing water there, but then as you come into turn 14, the water is slightly less heavy at this part of the track, as once again you got tumbles of thunder all around Sepang.
Yeah, that was a big flash of lightning a moment ago. Almost cut the picture out for a second. Still a lot of spray down that back straight as well, heading towards the last corner. And so easy to overcook it. He does get it turned in safely.
Well, Austria is the first nation to complete a timed lap in this 4th segment at 2 minutes 24.028. That was the time from Matthias Lauda. And now we wait to see what Australia's done at 2:22.4, so 1.5 seconds quicker for Australia.
Yeah, but he's only 0.2 of a second off the aggregate time set by Lebanon. So if he gained 0.2 of a second on that last lap, he could have gone 23rd instead of 24th, but that's the way it goes. Now, Great Britain have done well. They're 4th. Let's hear from Robbie Kerr.
Robbie, when the weather changes and there are cars on circuit, there are winners and losers. Which group would you put yourself in?
Well, neither of those at the moment. We've won because we're on 4th, and it's a good starting spot, P4, here for the first race, and then we've just got to go and do it for the rest of the weekend.
You're not going to go out again, though?
We're not going out again at the moment, no. we ran earlier when it was fully wet, and we learned a little bit about the car, but we're just going to leave it at the moment and see what the weather's like tomorrow.
How difficult is it to find an effective wet weather setup for these cars?
Well, it's down to the circuit and how much the weather changes, and at the moment it's changing a lot, so it is purely circumstantial if you get the right setup.
Adapt. I'll wait till the cars come back. Adapt and survive, eh, Robbie?
It is, definitely.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks.
Robbie Kerr, good effort from him today, 4th on the grid, so he starts from the 2nd row. As you can see, those wet tyres that have all the work of clearing water.
It's not just the wet tyres, it's the amount of gravel that's been dragged out from underneath Team Brazil car. They would often turn one at the wettest, I think, of that 3rd segment of qualifying. So Nelson Piquet Jr. with just over 6 minutes remaining sits in the car. Whether the team will try and get him out before this segment finishes. They're certainly doing everything they can. I think they want to gain just any further information they possibly can. Looks like they might be making a change somewhere around the rear of the car as well. And it's all hands to the tiller, literally, to get that car ready with 6 minutes remaining.
Yes, not much more time for these guys to get a little bit of an experience for these track conditions. Just talked, we mentioned Robbie Kerr, we heard from him a moment ago. 4th place on the grid, that matches Great Britain's best qualifying performance of the season so far. They did the same at Lausitzring.
Team France have just gone through. They've given their 4th segment time at 2 minutes 18.5, and that's the quickest. Second quickest is Czech Republic, 2:19.4, and thereafter everybody's into the 2 minutes 20 plus.
Yeah, we're riding on board with Brian Herter for Team USA here as he gets some experience of these track conditions as well. There's Khalil Bashir. We saw him getting into trouble on one of the earlier runs, and Canada too. Likewise, they ended up 22nd. That's the biggest disappointment, I think, for Team Canada. There was a great mood within that team following the official practice sessions here this weekend. They had tremendous confidence. He'd been fast, Sean McIntosh, in every single session, and then they've completely lost out here in the second of the qualifying segments. He was 11th after the first segment, so that was a little disappointing, but I'm sure they felt they could probably move up into the top 10. But with that second lap going wrong for him, he's ended up 22nd.
Yes, I mean, that is a huge disappointment. The growth of Sean McIntosh in the A1 Grand Prix Series has been one of the joys to watch as we look down on Brian Herter and the Team USA. In the meantime, Italy have also got into their 1 minute 19s with Toccarcella. Currently, Italy will start from 10th position, 5th row of the grid.
I tell you what though, John, it does bode well for a good race, doesn't it? Because there are a number of teams who did lose out on that second qualifying segment who have shown good pace this weekend. So the prospects for a bit of overtaking, a bit of passing are good.
Yes, and we're on a racetrack where there are going to be a number of positions around the lap. I mean, I can count up to 4 places easily where we would expect to see overtaking. That's into most corners. But even in other parts, being able to get a slipstream out of turn 15 up into turn 1, and equally a slipstream out of turn 14 up into turn 15.
Malaysia also on circuit. Alex Young at the wheel. Also, as he said, getting experience in these track conditions. The forecast, as we heard from Emerson Fittipaldi earlier, saying 60% chance of rain. No way of predicting it, really. It came in so quickly here today, and it is quite local too, and we saw areas of the circuit dry while other parts were wet, and it is only a 3.4 mile track. It's not as if it's tens of miles long, but that's just the nature of the weather here. Yesterday afternoon it was dry at the track, and they had a complete downpour down the road in Kuala Lumpur that affected the train services and everything, so that shows you how localized it can be.
So Brazil just about to go out. They've got a little over 3 minutes to do so, so it's going to be a tight call for Nelson Piquet Jr. to get out, complete an out lap, and then, well, he should do it. There's enough time with 3 minutes remaining.
Yeah, time to get a little bit more running in under their belt. But we are getting towards the end of the outright qualifying here. Fastest in these conditions, France with a 2:18.5, but almost matched a moment ago by Team Ireland. They're also in the 2 minutes 18s, and the Netherlands too, Jos Verstappen, almost identical pace. So really the guys who've been fast in the dry are showing exactly the same sort of pace in the wet.
Yes, and I think as the grid as it stands, we've got Switzerland, France in the front row of the grid, Ireland and Great Britain on the second row, and certainly Switzerland, France and Ireland in the sessions that we've seen in the dry have been, and pretty much particularly Switzerland and Ireland have been the very strongest of teams. France has got up there, was there all the time, they just didn't show their hand, and a great performance by GBR and Robbie Kerr to join them on the second row of the grid.
Alex Young coming around to complete that lap. Let's just see what time the Malaysian did there. Looking up, it's a 2:18.6. Again, that's very representative. It's as fast as pretty much anybody, as fast as the French, only slower by a few hundredths of a second. And as the drivers discuss conditions and think about what's gone on today, we're riding on board briefly with Ananda Mikula of Indonesia.
Well, the fact somebody's gone quicker of all, and it is Indonesia, 2 minutes 17.6. So Ananda Mikula, the man who has managed to break that stranglehold, if you like, between who is going to be fastest in this fourth segment of qualifying, it is Indonesia. Good job. Local knowledge and local experience in these conditions, no doubt, has played a big part of that.
Good effort, that from Ananda Mikula. Almost a second quicker, in fact, than anybody else. So watch out for him if it rains for either the sprint or feature race tomorrow. But the celebrations can begin for Team Switzerland. They knew that they were going to hold on to pole. There was no prospect of anyone beating them, but you don't like to start celebrating until the qualifying sessions are over. We've still got just over a minute to go until the checkered flag comes out, and there is the Brazilian car. It's being cleaned up, sent on track again, and Piquet is perhaps being a little cautious as he finishes off the session.
So he's coming out of 14 on the way down into turn 15, so he'll have time to start a flying lap, and he'll get that information. He'll already have a very good idea of the levels of grip around the circuit, and he almost gets caught out coming into that final turn. It doesn't really matter if you run wide in these conditions. Very frequently you'll find there's a lot of grip out there where the normal racing line does not always give up the best of grip with the weather being so inclement.
Quite a rooster tail, and heading up towards turn 1, which is where he had his off earlier. Presumably going to be braking a little earlier into it this time. Looking through the corner right round, trying to track the line through this tightening radius right-hander, and then it just drops downhill slightly through the left-hander, and then he's looking through ahead again to turn 3, slides it through there, bit of opposite lock applied.
Yes, just trying to get the power on as hard as possible, as early as possible in the back of the car, just fidgeting away as the rear tyres scrabble for grip.
Now up towards turn 4. I wonder if he'll complete this whole lap. Looking at the telemetry on the right-hand side there from the car, giving us the revs and speed in kilometres per hour, the gear as well, and when he's on the power and when he's on the brake. This is the section turns 5 and 6. He had a strange spin up here yesterday in the practice session, but he holds it there. Beautiful opposite lock correction coming out of the corner.
But again, watch the RPM. That's the indication at the top of the graphic. He's not using anywhere near the 9,000 RPM that's needed. I mean, up to 8.5, but that's the first time in this lap now in a straight part of track he can afford to use maximum power. But everybody has been short shifting. That's taking the revs way below the maximum. They don't want to get into maximum power. They want to just get the momentum going forward. And if you can avoid getting into maximum power and therefore creating wheel spin, you will gain time.
Yes, you can watch that graphic, see how the revs climb up into the orange and then into the red sector as he approaches the rev limiter at 9,100 revs. But he won't be pushing it that hard in these conditions, just as you say, looking for the slightly lower revs and more drive off the corners.
Well, he looks very good coming through these in the final, well, the penultimate corner now, turn 14, so that's a controlled exit. You know, good drive off in these very wet conditions. The conditions constantly change in the wet. You never have a constant wet weather circumstance. Every lap it will be different from your previous lap. So pulls across from left to right. This is where he made a slight error but didn't really penalise him too much at the beginning of this single flying lap in the fourth segment of qualifying. Again, you see how wet it is, and the car running over the curb wants to grab and slide across the track. So what did he do? Brazil.
He did a 2:18.2, so it wasn't the fastest of the session in the wet, but not far off it. It was actually, I think, the second fastest time we've seen in those conditions. The fastest time going to Indonesia's Ananda Mikula. A bit of a surprise, but he has been fast here in the dry as well as Mikula. I think he'll be a bit disappointed to only end up 11th on the grid, but as we've seen, a number of drivers felt that it could have been better for them, and the if word is going to be bandied around the pit lane quite considerably, I think, this evening.
As Adam Khan comes out of turn 14, and he will be, I suspect, coming in. If not, he was a very late entry onto this racetrack to compete. He's done well. In fact, this will be a timed lap. He will complete it. He's one that must have been literally going across the start-finish line to to begin his. He's got to just drive straight back into the pits.
Yeah, that was his hot lap, but he's decided to finish it by coming into the pit lane rather than completing it and doing a slowdown lap as well. So that is the end of qualifying. All 4 sessions have been completed, but it was the first 2 sessions that have dictated how the grid will line up in the sprint race for the 5th event of A1 Grand Prix. And we do have a new pole sitter. It's Switzerland on top from France and Ireland. Ireland have their best grid position so far. Great Britain matching their own best with a 4th spot, and New Zealand well up there in 5th. Netherlands will start from 6th place. Jos Verstappen finished both races last time out for the first time, hoping to do the same again. Alex Young lines up 7th for Malaysia, Brazil 8th. They've got a bit of work to do. They run 2nd to France in the championship, and they start 6 places behind them. Portugal will start 9th, and Italy will start in 10th position. Then in 11th it'll be Indonesia, fastest in the wet, but lining up 11th place on the grid. Herta, 12th for the USA, dropped back after setting great pace in the first segment. Then South Africa, Pakistan, India, Germany, another one to lose out. Mexico with a new driver, Luis Diaz, on board. Czech Republic, Japan, Austria, China, Canada. Now Canada will definitely be fighting its way up the order from 22nd, particularly if it's dry. They've shown great pace. Bashir and Davison for Lebanon, and Australia will complete the lineup of 24 cars.
But I think for a number of drivers, particularly for Canada starting so far down, when they've shown so much punishment, so much promise, there will have to be, just contain yourself. It will be a great error of judgment to try and win the race in the first corner, but it will be in that first corner where opportunities to overtake will come. It's a very wide corner, it's a very long, a very tight corner, and because this is a rolling start for the sprint race, the pole position will be on the inside, so whoever's on the outside, it will be Franz Alexander Premat. There will be a chance for cars to go side by side in turn 1, which of course would give the car then on the left hand side the line to enter into turn 2 ahead. So the start will be crucial, but people like McIntosh and Canada down in 22nd, they've just got to be patient and think really more for the feature race and just try and optimise the best that they can in the sprint race to give themselves the best possible starting position.
Nelson Piquet making his way into the scrutineering bay. He'll be weighed and then he'll be free to head off, no doubt. They just take that into account so that when they weigh the cars later, they've got that calculation already done. Let's now join the top 3 from that qualifying session, ready for the interviews.
Yanni and Team Switzerland, it was crucial to set the 2 fastest times early on in those sessions because the rain did come in.
Yeah, well, first run was okay, it was dry, everything went normal and we had quite a good run. And I knew I could improve for the second run, but then it started to drizzle a little bit and we decided to go early out. And then actually it even started to rain on some parts of the track quite heavily. So it was quite tricky, but managed to do another 54.5, I think, just 1/10 slower, so it was enough to get pole.
I think we just about had every weather condition out there apart from snow. How difficult is that to drive in when it's so unpredictable?
Well, so far we always knew it, but I guess for the race it will be really difficult, because if it starts to rain, it's sometimes on one corner it's a lot of water, on the other one it's dry. And what tire choice do you make then? So I guess if we have these conditions tomorrow in the race, it will be a really tough one to win.
Alex Premat, Team France, you set a good time in the second session of qualifying, even when it was raining. That must have been very pleasing for you.
Yeah, for sure. I did, I think, a really good time in the first one, and the second one I did a good time because when I start with the team, we decided to start a little bit late between Ralph Inman or Jean Hill, and so maybe it was too late, and some parts of the track was grazing, so it was really hard to drive, and I was really safe with the car to do a lap.
Is it possible to learn anything about the car from a qualifying session like today's has been?
Yeah, for sure. We learn a lot of things because I think during the free practice it was really hard to prepare, to update the car, because it was really hard to use the new tire, and probably I think we need to work tonight to see the data in qualifying 1 and 2, and maybe to see also the qualifying 4 in the wet, and I hope to win tomorrow.
Alex, thanks very much. Ralph Furman and Team Ireland, you're another driver who moved up position and capitalised on the rain in the second qualifying session.
Yeah, we've had a really good weekend all around. We've been very, very strong on old tyres especially, and we didn't have the best of laps the first qualifying, but we improved the car a lot for the second, and I didn't make any mistakes, so we did a good time and managed to get up in the top 3, which is great, and it gives a good opportunity to get good chance of winning one of the races at least anyway.
And from your own point of view, did you learn much? Will you be making any changes before the race tomorrow?
It depends on the weather, doesn't it? But probably for you, I don't know, we have to go back and talk about it and see what the weather's going to be like tomorrow.
Yanni, just finally, how difficult is it when the weather is so unpredictable in terms of setting up your car? Can you be ready for every eventuality?
Well, really difficult. That's why actually now the last run we tried in a dry setup in the rain to see how the car reacts if it tomorrow would rain during the race. So we know now this, and well, we just try to get the best semi option, I would call it, semi between rain and dry.
Gentlemen, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, tomorrow it is, of course, race day. Uninterrupted live race coverage of A1 Grand Prix Malaysia getting underway at 5 a.m. on Sky Sports 3. It never rains but pours in Malaysia. It's been a wild, wet and windy day of qualifying at Sepang. More of the unpredictable awaits race day.